Hello everybody. It was just yesterday after working a couple of days outside for the first time this spring that I sat down for supper. The problem was I had trouble getting up. Every muscle in my back, every muscle in my arms and legs was hurting. So I got up very slowly as I tried to straighten up. And Callie noticed all this, and especially the moaning and groaning that came with it. And this is what she said, very sincerely, very genuinely, like an innocent child, and she meant every word of it. Do you need a Band-Aid? Now that wasn't going to fix it, but that's what she said. And we're facing a situation in our society today, in our country, as well as around the world, that a Band-Aid is not going to fix. There is no easy fix. And we're all in this together, and it's creating, as you know, quite a lot of devastation. The economy is faltering, basically a shutdown. Investments have really fallen. People are hurting. People are dying. It's everywhere, and it's affecting so many different people. And we've learned some new phrases that I've never heard in my 61 years of life. And the first one is stay home. And I'm not sure I like those words. The second one is social distancing. As at Menards today, they had signs about it everywhere. And then the last one was sheltering in place. Now our building is closed here at the church, and that's never happened either in all of my years of ministry. But the church is still open. The building might be closed, but the church is still open because the church is more than just a building. The church is people. And despite the fact that the building is closed, the church can still be active, the church can still do certain things, and still act like a family, because we're all make up the kingdom of God. And that's what a church is really all about. As we think about that, I want us to think about this. As a church is still open, even though our building is closed, what we can practice is distant love. And there's ways of doing that, and we'll get to that in just a few moments. But let's pause for just a moment and think about Joseph. You know, the story of Joseph in the Old Testament started with Genesis chapter 37. And if you remember, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his sons and to check on the flock and see how things were going. And when he went there, his brothers decided that they were going to throw him into a dry cistern, and they were going to kill him. But Reuben, of course, was trying to interfere in that process. And so what they decided to do was sell him into slavery. And so the Ishmaelites took him, and eventually he made his way, after being sold again, to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's chief guards. And so he lived in that type of environment for a long time. And he prospered there. He did very well there. And then the day came, as he said it would, that there was a famine, things that were affecting every country around the world, in those times at least, except for Egypt. Egypt had plenty of food. And eventually his brothers came to him, not knowing who he was, all the way from Canaan to Egypt. And they bought some food, and through a process and some strategies that Joseph put into play, he wanted more of the family to come. And of course, Benjamin came as well. And eventually it all occurred where at a certain point, Joseph told them who he was. And I remember now what it says in Genesis chapter 45, verse 15, and he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And afterwards his brothers talked with him. Joseph was practicing distant love in that, because despite what they did to him, despite their feelings toward him, probably all of those years, when Joseph had the opportunity, he practiced love to his brothers. And as a church, that's what we need to be doing. There's people hurting right now in our church, and we need to be reaching out to them in every way possible. If you think about the three people we have in the nursing home, we have Leo, we have Margaret, and we have Don. And they're all confined to their room or their half a room. and they're not allowed out of that room to go eat or anything else for the most part. How much would a card make to them? It would make a lot. How much would a phone call make to them? Now, Don doesn't have a phone, and he couldn't hear, I don't think, if you called him anyway. But Margaret has a phone, Leo has a phone, and Leo even does computer work. And so he gets emails and does that type of thing, and it would mean so much to them if the church would reach out to them and practice some distant love. But they're not the only ones. Think about those in our church that have what our governor has called essential jobs. We have Valeska Telford at the hospital, and they just assume they're going to get this virus, their entire family, sooner or later. She's one of the heroes in our church at the moment because she still goes to the hospital and she still does her job. And then we have somebody like Jennifer at Kroger. Grocery stores are considered essential jobs. And she's there and bagging groceries, gathering carts, and doing the cleanup work that she has to do. And but yet she's exposing herself to anybody possibly that would come into the store that would have the virus. And then there are those that are just at home with children. And if you're at home with children full time, that's not an easy task. And sure, sometimes we put up with that or we deal with that during the summer, but we're talking day in and day out, and it's going to happen for another month. Perhaps we need to make some phone calls, send some cards, send some emails, use social media to reach out to different members of our congregation and know that they're hurting. And we have lots of senior citizens. They're home alone. Their families are bringing them stuff. I've checked on all of that. But yet, it would mean so much just to get a phone call from one of you and reaching out and practicing what I'm calling distant love. There's distance between you and them. There's distance between all of us in our church at the moment. And but the practicing of distant love is where we need to reach out and accomplish. So with that said, next week I'm going to come back with another portion of Joseph's story that kind of relates to what we're going through here, and we hope that you'll join us then.